Hi friends, welcome to Naresh IT. My name is Nataraj. In this video, I am going to talk what is Servlet. Nothing but I am going to talk definition of Servlet. Everyone knows Servlet JSPs are web technologies in what? Java environment using which we can develop the websites, nothing but web applications. Web applications are also called as what? Websites. As we know that there are three dominant technologies in the market to develop the websites. Java for developing large scale websites. .NET for developing what? Medium scale websites. So about 20 pages we prefer using Java. More dynamic content, about 20 pages, security is required, performance is required. Then we go for what? Java. Lot of e-commerce website, banking websites are there in what? Java. .NET, medium scale websites. Like dynamic content is there, but number of pages are less, below 20 pages, about 10 pages and medium size. Then we go for what? .NET kind of thing. College websites, university websites, so hospital, one to hospital websites. This kind of applications we develop by using .NET. So in Java we use Servlet JSP to develop the websites. In .NET we use what? ASP.NET to develop the websites. And when it comes to small scale website, we take the support of what? PHP. So PHP for developing what? Small scale websites. If you want to finish website development in 1 week, 10 days, having more static content, less dynamic content, so then we have to think about going for what? PHP. If I summarize this discussion, we use Java for large scale website, mainly Servlet JSP, and as part of this we are going to discuss what? As part of this we are going to discuss what? How to develop large scale application having good performance. E-commerce website, banking application. .NET for small scale. College and university application. PHP for small scale. So like one to movie website, promotional website which are not required more than 1 month. Once 1 month is over, movie promotion is over, they don't mind stopping that website and undeploying that web application. In that situation we may think about going for what? PHP. So in this video, mainly I would like to concentrate on what is Servlet. That means definition of Servlet. I am going to give total 4 definitions because not only my definitions are popular, their count is also very popular. Sometimes interviewer even expect, okay, why are you giving 1-2 definition when there are multiple definition? So I have seen some students getting this kind of what? Count related issue also. That's why I always suggest you people, I always encourage you people, try to give all the 4 definitions while giving answer to interview for the question called what is Servlet. So let's try to understand our first definition of the Servlet. What is the first Servlet? Servlet is a Java based server side web technology that allows us to develop what? Dynamic web component having ability to generate dynamic web pages. First let's try to understand Java based server side web technology. Since Servlet components executes in the server whenever they are requested, that's why it comes under server side web technology. Basically they are created in Java, that's why Java based server side web technology. So using this Servlet, what kind of web components we develop? Dynamic web components. Why? Because Servlet components are capable of generating web pages. You know that web components are 2 types, static, dynamic. If web component generates static web page, then it is called static web component. If web component generate what? Dynamic web page, then it is called dynamic web component. So content of the web page is fixed for any number of requests, static web component. Content of the web page is changing for every request that it is giving. So dynamic web page. About us page, contact us page are called what? Static web pages, because you give 1000 requests to those pages, content will not change. Inbox page, live game score page, stock market share value page, or what? Static web page. Based on time of request generation, based on input values of the request, content of the web page changes. Such web page is called as what? Dynamic web page. What web page here? Dynamic web page. So overall, servlet technology is there to develop server-side web component, because servlet component executes in the server. They generate dynamic web pages. That's why they are called dynamic web components. So using servlet, we are going to get dynamic web component which are having capability to generate what? Dynamic web pages. Let's see the terminology. Servlet is a Java based server side web technology. It's a whose component executed server side. That's why server side. That allows us to develop dynamic web components. So since the servlet component generate dynamic web pages, they are called server side dynamic web components. To generate what? Dynamic web pages. They generate dynamic web pages. This is my definition one, very standard definition. If someone asks you what is the use of servlet, it is there to develop dynamic web pages. That's why servlet is dynamic web technology. And where it executes? Server side. That's why server side technology. So let's go for definition number 2. Everyone knows to execute web application in an automated environment. That means taking request dynamically, delivering response dynamically. To do all these things, definitely what is required here? Server is required. But server get the functionality when request is there, response is delivered. If requests are not coming, responses are not delivered, servers will not get any kind of functionalities. Servers will not get any kind of what? Functionalities. When requests are not given, responses are not delivered, server will not have any functionality to perform. So, but when requests will come, when web components are there. How to develop web components? By using web technology. So servlet is what? Web technology. So servlet is a web technology using which we can develop web components. Because of this web component, servers will get something to do. Indirectly we are extending or we are providing some functionality to server because of what? Web technologies. That's why my second definition goes based on what? Providing functionality to the server. Without web application, without web component, server is like dustbin. Web server is like what? Dustbin. Web server contains web applications. Web components are there to process the request to generate the response. That means server is getting some functionality because of web components, and web components are developed by using what? Web technology. So I can say web technologies are there providing some functionality to the servers. Okay, that's why we can say web technologies are useful to extend the functionalities of what? Servers. See my definition. Servlet is a JWE module based web technology. You know Java is having 3 modules: JSC, JWE, JME. And JDBC, JNDA belongs to JSC module. Servlet belongs to JWE module. So servlet is a JWE module based server side web technology, because this component executes at what side? Server side. Having capability to extend the functionalities of web server or what is that? HTTP server. Since entire server is running based on what? Protocol HTTP, some part of industry calls web server also as what? HTTP server. Web server also has HTTP server. So because of servlet technology, we develop web component. Because of web component, request processing happens. Because of request processing, server gets request, delivers the response. Overall, servers are getting some functionality to perform because of what? Web component. And web components are developed by using web technology. That's why we don't mind calling these are what? Providing functionality to web servers and application servers or HTTP servers. So nice. So let's see our third definition. Let's see our what? Third definition. What is our third definition? Yeah, let's see our definition number 3. This is very technical definition here. Definition number 3 is servlet is a JW module web technology, that to server side web technology that allows us to develop single instance multiple threads based server side web component. Single instance, single object, multiple threads based server side web components. I will put something like this. If you give 1000 requests to one servlet component, container creates only one object of that component. You know that every servlet component is a Java class. Container creates how many objects for that class here? Only one object. For 1000 requests, how many threads will be created here? 1000 threads will be created. All these 1000 threads will act on what? Single object or different objects? All these 1000 threads will act on what? Single object. What object here? Single object. So that's why people calls it as servlet component is what? Single instance multiple threads component. Once again observe, I have given 100 requests to one servlet component X. Container creates only one object for that servlet component class X. But on that object, 100 threads will be started representing what? 100 requests. So overall, one object, multiple threads. That's why it is called single instance multiple threads component. Let me put that discussion in the form of what? A diagrammatic representation. Here, I am assuming I have servlet component. Let us assume this is my test servlet Java class. Test servlet class object. Test servlet class object. How many objects here? Single object. Single object, right. How many requests I am giving? Let us assume I am giving 3 requests. Request 1, request 2, request 3, request 4. These 4 requests may come from same browser or different browser. Yes. So all these requests will be received by process. Which process? The process that is started by container or server. The process that is started by container or server. Inside this process, here is what? Thread 1. Here is what? Thread 2. Here is what? Thread 3. Here is what? Thread 4. Yes. So how many requests are given here? 4 threads. Request 1, request 2, request 3, request 4. For 4 requests, how many threads will be started? 4 threads. Thread 1, thread 2, thread 3, thread 4. Total how many threads here? 4 threads. All these threads are started in what? Daemon process. Once we start the server, one daemon process will be created to listen to client requests continuously. In that daemon process, for multiple requests, how many threads will be started? Multiple threads. All these threads will be acting on single object. All these threads will be acting on what? Single object. Right. So total how many threads? Request 1, request 2, request 3, request 4. Total how many requests here? 4 requests. 4 requests, how many threads? 4 threads. All these 4 threads are acting on single object. Like this, you give 100 requests, 100 threads. 100 requests are given to single servlet component. Single servlet component means how many objects will be created? Only one object for that component class will be created. On that object, how many threads will be started? 100 threads. All these 100 threads will run on that object simultaneously or not? Yeah, that's the reason people calls it as what? Single instance multiple threads based server side web component. Look at the definition number 3. Servlet is a JW module based server side web technology, because these web components runs in what? Web server, executes in web server, server side. That allows us to develop single instance and multiple threads based server side web component. server side, single instance, multiple threads based server side web component. I hope you got a clarity on it. Okay, remaining people may give other definition, but I suggest the people who are following this video, I suggest you people to give this definition a lot, because it is quite technical definition, and if you give this definition, opposite person understand, you got lot of depthness in what? Servlet knowledge. Because you are talking about what happens internally, single instance and multiple threads component. Let's move to our fourth definition. Servlet is a JW module technology here, which is having API. API means packages having classes and interfaces. This API will look like rules and guidelines for vendor companies to develop Servlet container. Same API will act as base for the programmer to develop server-side web component. That means Servlet technology provides rules and guidelines for vendor companies to develop Servlet container, where Servlet component executes. Same Servlet technology gives API, okay, for programmers to develop what? Servlet component. That's the reason Servlet component is able to execute in Servlet container. Because Servlet container is created as a software to execute Servlet component based on Servlet technology. Servlet component is also created based on Servlet API. That's why the Servlet component becomes very much compatible to execute in what? Servlet container. I'll give one small example. Faculty teaches the classes based on the course brochure rules and guidelines, course pamphlet, course brochure. Student also attends the class based on the course brochure guidelines. Since both are confined to same course brochure, so student feels comfortable to attend the classes given by faculty, because faculty is running the classes based on course brochure plan. Student also attending the classes based on course brochure plan. So for faculty, it looks like a rules and guidelines document to make himself ready to conduct the classes. For student, it looks like what? Guiding document to attend the classes of the faculty by following certain pattern. So overall, for faculty, it looks in one angle. For student, it looks in what? Another angle. I hope you got a clarity. Here, course brochure is like Servlet technology, rules and guidelines. Faculty is like Servlet container. Okay, student is like Servlet component. Since both are confined to Servlet technology, Servlet component can be easily executed by whom? Servlet container. I hope you understood this one. Right. I'll give one more example. We write Java code based on Java APIs. Whatever APIs we got in predefined APIs, lang package, util package, all this thing. JVM, JR also, JRE, Java Runtime Environment, JVM, are also created based on Java APIs and some other native APIs. Since Java code written by us, JRE, JVM both are developed based on Java APIs. So JVM, JRE feels very comfortable to execute our Java code or not. Same thing here also. So Servlet is a JW module web technology given by Sun Microsystem. Now it is acquired by Oracle Corporation, providing rules and guidelines. What here? Providing what? Rules and guidelines for vendor companies to develop Servlet container. Yes. And also gives API for programmers to develop what? Server-side dynamic web components. Since both are confined to same Servlet technology, Servlet container as a software, as a container, it becomes comfortable to execute what? Servlet component. So this is about fourth definition. So if you look at all the four definition, talking about same Servlet, but I touched various angle of what? Servlet. In first definition, I talked about it is a server-side technology to develop dynamic web components having capability to generate dynamic web pages, static and dynamic kind of thing. Yeah, if you look at definition number 2, if you look at what? Definition number 2, I talked about because of web application, web components, server is getting some functionality to perform. So in this process, we found web technologies are extending the functionality of what? Web server or HTTP server. Next, third definition, here I talked about internals of what, how it executes. So even though you give 1000 requests to servlet component, it creates, container creates one object, and on that one object 1000 threads will be started representing 1000 requests. That's why I called it as single instance multiple threads component. Last one, I talked how servlet technology will be used to create servlet container and servlet component. Not only that, technology will be used in two angles here. Vendor companies use technology to develop software. Programmers use technology to develop application. So these application will run in the technology based software. For example, you take JDBC. JDBC technology will be used by vendor companies to develop JDBC driver software. Same technology will be used by whom? Okay, programmers to develop JDBC code. To develop what? JDBC code. So JDBC code happily can execute what? In JDBC driver to talk with the database software. So JDBC code uses JDBC driver, and each and every instruction of JDBC code goes through what? Driver to interact with the database software to manipulate database data. So in this process, if you observe very thoroughly, if you observe very nicely, so driver is helping to do all the activities on the database. So same thing, servlet technology is useful for vendors to develop containers, servlet containers. Same thing is useful for programmers to develop what? Servlet components. That's the reason servlet component can happily execute what? In servlet container environment. So try to give all the 4 definitions, okay, so that you can impress what? Interviewer. If you attend 10 interviews, at least in 7 to 8 interviews, this question will be asked. So it is very important FAQ. Thank you. Have a nice time.